Welcome back to 3 Plus U. Pretty serious topic, teen suicide. It is the worst thing in the world to think about, especially if you have kids, if this is something that has impacted you, or you have kids that in your life that maybe you just want a little more information with things that they're going through. Here we have an expert to help us through from CHI Memorial. This is Jason Reich. And Jason, you're a therapist with CHI Memorial. So let's talk first of all. I can't even imagine what is going through anybody's head to even make this a possibility, a possible solution to any problem that they're having, but it's there. It happens literally every day.
Yeah.
Talk to me about teen suicide. What are some of the main things we need to know?
Well, for one, teens commit suicide far greater times than adults do, and I think part of that is an identity thing. Their psyche, their psychological health isn't quite formulated like an adult, so the idea of finality for them isn't quite there like an adult.
Do they really not understand just death in general? Is that why there's more risk-taking? I remember when I was a kid, when I was in college, the big thing to do in Bristol, Tennessee, there was this big hill, and at the end of the hill there was a stop sign. There's a big ditch, woods, and we would jump the hill and land.
Yeah.
And you had to pretty much slam on the brakes not to run into the side, and it was the most fun ever.
Yeah.
But you never consider death.
Yeah, there's something chemical in the brain that also doesn't get them to be able to see the full spectrum of what death is. But also, you think of your life ahead, you kind of think that expectation of living a full life, and you don't really think about some of those dangers. So,
with teen suicide particularly, when I think of adults committing suicide, we always seem to tie it to depression, and I'm sure we could go into a whole different thing on depression.
Yeah.
But is depression is it something that teens are dealing with also?
Oh yeah, as early as 6 and 7 years old, we're seeing it and diagnosing it a lot earlier with children. It looks a little bit differently in children, but somebody doesn't have to be depressed to commit suicide. That's probably the first thing that you're watching for, and the likeliest reason for suicide is depression.
Well, if that's the leading cause, what are some of the other ones? Just life events?
Yeah, life events, which could cause depression or just be a life event in general. Anger can be attention seeking. Of course, we see that a lot. Nothing to do with depression in that case. Children just or teens looking for attention and thinking that this will get their attention. And when you don't understand the finality of death, that might seem like a likely situation.
Are they actually trying to end their life, or is it something where, sure, I'm not going to die. I'll come close to it.
Yeah, I think they are trying to end their life, but not in the way that we think it. I think that in some way, you talk to a teen who thinks about suicide, and they might say, well, when they see that I'm dead, then they'll love me. And there's this kind of like out-of-body kind of deal where I've heard teens talk about how they'll like watch their loved ones mourn and watch the people who bullied them be upset. And so it's kind of this experience that like I'll sit back, watch what happens, and then I'll come back and re-engage with the people who now showed that they love me.
Yeah. Talk about social media. It's so huge with teens. I love social media, and I hate social media.
I think for one, the expectations, that's just one of the things that we see. So much expectation that comes from seeing everybody else in life, seeing thousands of people, thousands of friends, what they're doing, what they're not doing. And so being able to establish a healthy identity is really difficult as a teen when you see all these different people, all these different choices. And so it's too broad in that way.
A big thing, other than social media, video games. Kids are plugged into their phones, they're plugged into computers. Very rarely are they plugged in with other people. Can that give kind of a distorted view of reality also? I
think the biggest cause in my perspective for depression and anxiety is broken relationships. And when it comes to teens, they have these pseudo relationships on video games, they have a pseudo relationship on social media, they have these pseudo relationships in a lot of aspects of life, but no real intimate relationships. And so there's so much expectation on them, but yet they're not really getting truly engaged with other kids.
Well, if a parent is wanting to make sure that this isn't something that their child is even considering, are there particular signs to look for?
Well, I always say that for one, you have to first know your children. And a lot of times parents don't know their children very well, and so they can't actually even watch for changes in their mood and their behavior. So primarily, be close, know your children, know what their typical behavior is so that you can see the differences. And so when you do see somebody isolate themselves, which is a big sign of depression, also a big sign of suicide, prevention or way of preventing suicide. So watching them for isolation, watching changes in their behavior, watching changes in their attitude, of course, drop in their grades, all of a sudden they're going straight to their room, they're not engaging, disengaging with the world in general is
Do you recommend, and this may be a touchy subject, but I'm going to ask it, do you recommend that it seems like school and school scenarios is where a lot of bullying takes place, a lot of bullying occurs, and God bless the school system, they're trying to weed that out as best they can, but it's going to be there. Young people are going to be young people. So do you recommend that if someone is in a situation, and I'm using school as the primary example, but any situation where bullying or things like that are going on that may impact someone's self-esteem, someone's mood, do you recommend that they get pulled out of that situation, or do we give that child tools to deal with that situation?
No, I mean, I think you can't pull them out of the situation. I think part of the rise is also bullying has been around forever. In fact, there was some pretty significant bullying when I was a kid and years ago, and so that's not necessarily the problem, even though we can do our best to prevent bullying. I mean, we want to teach kids to be nice to each other, but the sense of identity, when you're in identity crisis and then somebody bullies you, your self-esteem is low and somebody bullies you, then the impact is that much more greater. So we need to keep our kids safe from bullies. We need to teach kids not to bully, to be nice. We need to teach them to go to the right sources when they're being bullied, to a teacher, to a parent. Absolutely, I think the focus on bullying is significant and is very helpful. But the focus on identity is where we need to be.
And I don't know where you stand, but I am an absolute believer. My kids, they're older now, but when they were young teens doing the cell phone thing, I knew everything. I was all in their business, in their business. And I think parents need to be in their kids' business to make sure things like that aren't creeping up. What are some resources that you would recommend, some things that you would tell parents if this is something you're worried about your child or a child that's in your sphere of influence? What do they need to do?
Well, I say, like I said, knowing your children well. And so when you see a change in their behavior, see a change in their attitude, engage them. Don't wait for them to come to you. That's a number one key. Is a lot of parents say, well, they didn't say anything, they didn't come to me, they didn't, and don't ever wait for your children to come to you. You can't push them into talking, but you can be there for them and you can ask questions. Especially a teen who's getting on the verge of suicide or other things, they usually really do want to talk. That's part of the problem, is they want to talk and there's nobody seems to be there who wants to listen.
Jason Reich, he's a good listener. He will listen to anybody. He'll even listen to me for a couple of minutes. Thank you so much. Also, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, want to give that to you as well. 1-800-273-TALK, 8255, 1-800-273-8255. At least write that number down, put it in the drawer, and you might need it later. SuicidePreventionLifeline.org, the website, and of course CHI Memorial Integrative Medicine Associates, that is Suite 200 out on East Main Street, 643-2246, the number there, CHI Memorial Medical Group.org. Jason Reich, a therapist with CHI Memorial, thank you so much for coming in. Fascinating information. And we will take a quick break and have more 3+U right after this.